we will calculate the operating expenses on the sales now to determine what is the total percentage of my total sales that I spent on expenses. This is a very important calculation because you can't spend too much money on expenses, then you will not make a profit. So you will always determine what is the percentage of my total sales that I spend on expenses to determine how I can reduce this. So the operating expenses will be divided by sales over 100, and remember the operating expenses is the ones above that little block where we did the calculation, so it's 46,000 and 51,000. So I will take the 46,000 divided by 158, and I see that the expenses in the current year was 29.11%, and in the previous year it was 32.69. So the first thing is I do the calculation and then we compare these with each other, and I say that the expenses decreased from 32% to 29%. So that means that our expenses was lowered and we are actually making a bigger profit. And why did they succeed to reduce the expenses? Because there was a cutback of operating expenses in 2021. So at the end of 2022, when they looked at the financial statements, they decided the 32% is too high, and they put in some measures to reduce it, and that's why it's a bit lower this year. It's very important to take into account that the expenses reduced with 5,000 and that the sales increased with 2,000. So this business was able, after they made decisions the end of the previous year, to increase their sales and decrease the expenses, and that is why the percentage that they spent on expenses decreased in the current year. You will also compare this figure to the firm's policy of how much they want to spend on expenses, and you will compare it to the competitors to see if we are in line with the competitors in connection with our expenses. If this percentage is not satisfactory, you will have to increase sales, so you will have to take a few measures, special promotions, annual sale, more advertising, to see if you can increase the sales so that you will be able to pay all your expenses and still make a profit. You must try and reduce expenses, so you will have to go through all the expenses and see which one of these expenses are you able to decrease. And I've given you a few methods to decrease the expenses. For instance, if the telephone account is very high, you can link the telephones of the staff members to the computer. At the end of the month, you will print out a list that will show you exactly how many calls each employee made, how long they were busy on one call, what is the number of the calls, so you will be able to see how many private calls they made in a day. Then you can force them to pay for their private calls. When the salaries are, for instance, very high, you will have to retrench some of it if you are not able to increase your sales. If the rent is high, you can decide this business could actually move to a cheaper premise so that you don't have to pay such a high rent, and that will increase your profits. Okay, then you have to look and see where can you change all these expenses, what is the methods that you can use, and the whole purpose of reducing these expenses is to see if you can in 2022 reduce this price even more. So if the policy of the business is, for instance, that they want to spend 25% on operating expenses of their total sales, then they aim to reduce this to 25%.